Welcome everybody again. It's so wonderful to see so many of you joining us today. I'm absolutely thrilled that we have reached this moment. We've come a long way since our first regional dialogue 2 months ago, when we set off on a journey to answer the question, how to boost the role of SMEs in providing good food for all. I see many familiar faces who were actually at that dialogue, so welcome back. We are back again today to present and discuss a small business agenda for the Food System Summit. This is the result of a fantastic consultation that my colleague Ian will discuss in more detail later. A huge and heartfelt thank you to all the inspiring SMEs who have generously taken the time to engage with us in this process so far. So before I walk us through the agenda, I'd like to thank the UN Food System Summit for sponsoring this event, and also take a moment to acknowledge our conveners, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, the International Chamber of Commerce, and the International Agri-Food Network. Thank you all for your leadership and collaboration. It's been great. I'm Nadia Martinez. I'm with Wasafiri, and I will be curating this dialogue. I'm joined by a wonderful group of people who will be speakers or facilitators to make this event as interesting and useful to you as possible. You'll get to know them as we move through the agenda. First, we are so delighted to hear opening remarks from Dr. Agnes Calibata, President of AGRA and UN Special Envoy to the Food System Summit 2021. She's a staunch advocate and supporter of SMEs. We will then hear from Ian Randall of Wasafiri about the findings of the Small Business Agenda report. He will be joined by two dynamo entrepreneurs whose pioneering SMEs are working to transform the food system in the here and now. We will follow that with an interactive exercise that I hope you will all enjoy, where we will hear from you about who and where in the world you are. And we ask you to share how you're contributing positively to the food system and what you need to have even more impact. Then we will split into breakout groups where we'll deliberate on a draft SME pledge that we can collectively take to the UN Food System Summit. When we return from breakout groups, our conveners will help us summarize conclusions and reflect on today's session, and then I'll wrap up with next steps. I hope you will stay through the entire session. Let's jump right in. It is an incredible honor to introduce a lady who needs no introduction, Dr. Agnes Calibata. I hope she has arrived.
She's in the room.
Thank you. Dr. Calibata, the floor is yours.
Good, very good. I didn't realize that I was coming up so fast. So it's very good to be part of this conversation. I'm really excited that we're able to get so many people in the room, have a conversation around SMEs. Like you said, I've come to believe that this is probably one of the most important segments of the work we do in food systems. It's probably also one of the most underappreciated segments of the food system. Sometimes we refer to them as hidden, sometimes we refer to them by all sorts of names, but in this Food Systems Summit, we thought that the most important thing we could do is to raise the profile of SMEs, give them voice, and give them an opportunity to be able to be part of the conversation and tell us what they do, what they represent, some of the things, the values they stand for, because the food system is about values at the end of the day. It's about how we ensure that the food system works for people, works for our planet, but also works for our prosperity. So the people part and the planet part is a lot about values and some of the values that we share. So for SMEs, it was very refreshing to see that the work that you all have done with them has highlighted a number of areas, and I just wanted to call out 3 that I think are extremely critical to where we are going. Besides the fact that they have a huge impact. I mean, if I told you on the African continent alone, only 20% of the food that we eat is we produce is eaten on the farm. Much as people believe that, just because people farm, that's all they do. Actually, that qualifies what we've been saying, that farming is a business for most people. 80% of the food is sold. It's eaten somewhere else other than where it was produced. That would not happen if SMEs were not in place, moving this food around, ensuring it has enough quality to be able to be moved around, and ensuring that they contribute to the farmers' need to make money out of the businesses they do, farming. 64% of the food we eat in African cities comes from the continent, and it is brought from the farm to the fork through the work of SMEs. So we really appreciate the work that SMEs do, and that has really underscored my own belief in SMEs and what they can help us achieve. But also the fact that probably good old industrialization that we know is what the path of the agricultural sector was, is probably not what is going to work for Africa today. So the more we double down on ensuring that businesses like SMEs are given the opportunity to be able to grow, the more we probably will get to be able to employ many more people than we have to date. So I want to call out the 3 areas that stood out for me in what was put forward as a synthesis. The fact that SMEs recognize that they are a vanguard of food systems transformation is extremely important, because it means that they too are interested in protecting the food systems that we are working with and ensuring that they work for all. The fact that SMEs called out the need for governments, large businesses, and other sectors to pay attention to their needs and to understand that SMEs probably can't survive on their own without a conducive environment and a support environment that comes from governments and large businesses. And finally, the fact that SMEs want to be accountable and want to hold themselves accountable through the work they will be doing in association with coalitions and in association with pathways. I find that this is an important part of what we are doing. National governments are designing pathways. Many of us are thinking about partnerships that get associated with those pathways, but we know that the bulk of that work is going to be done through SMEs. So SMEs calling for accountability, for transparency around this work and how it is being done is something that we're excited about and something that we look forward to. So I embrace the work that SMEs do. I embrace this report. I embrace the work that we are doing here. And I really look forward to the conversations that we have here today and hearing more from the report that is going to be put out. And I look forward to seeing SMEs stand tall with everybody on the food systems pre-summit and summit, raising their voices, but also making sure they are being heard, but also really taking from the summit and hearing the concerns of other people and taking them to heart and using the opportunity to grow. So thank you again for putting this together, and I look forward to the meeting this evening. Over to you, Nadia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Calibata. Your leadership and example certainly inspires us also. I thank you very much. Let's turn now to the first panel. I'm really looking forward to hearing about the small business agenda and how the issues that emerged manifest in the real lives of everyday SMEs. Now, on this panel, I am joined by Ian Randall, who is the director of Wasafiri and co-owner of a food SME himself, a sustainable community-oriented beach cafe. Bonolo Monte, who is the managing director of Maungo Craft, a mission-driven producer of gourmet craft jams made from indigenous fruits that would otherwise go to waste. She'll tell us more about this. And Luciano Loman, general manager of Metos Brazil and an innovator in technology and data-driven solutions for farmers. Welcome to all of you. Now, Ian, I wanted to start with you. You and your team have spent now the last 3 months consulting with and listening to food SMEs all over the world. Tell us more about this process and what came out of it.
Thanks, Nadia. Wow. The UN Food Systems Summit asked the Westbury team to engage SMEs all around the world in asking one big question, which was how to boost their role in providing good food for all. So we went looking for businesses that were already having a positive impact to understand what that impact was on the food system, what constrained it, and what could be done to overcome those constraints. And the response was both overwhelming and really inspiring. We had over 2,500 entrepreneurs complete a survey with representation from 137 different countries. And most of those entrepreneurs then went on to also submit entries to the summit's Best Small Business competition, where they got to tell us more about their story. So we got real depth. We also ran 11 dialogues in 7 languages with over 1,000 participants. And a lot of the other summit dialogues also explored issues related to small businesses. So we tapped into those too. Dozens of experts, some of which are on this call, also provided insights, and with the help of FAO, we undertook a comprehensive literature review. So we gathered all that input and kind of made sense of it. And one thing that is important to note is that actually SME perspectives are really varied depending on where they fit in the food system. So kind of acknowledging that though, there was still some really strong themes that did emerge, and it's those that we've summarized in the report that was shared with everybody ahead of this call.
Sounds like quite a feat, Ian, and yet super exciting. I know I've been part of it. So despite the complexity of food systems and the wide variety of SMEs, you're saying that strong themes actually emerged. Can you talk through some of those?
Yeah, I certainly will do. And I think firstly, while they may be small, SMEs do manage at least half of the multi-trillion-dollar global food economy. So whilst they're often overlooked, we've come to understand these SMEs as hidden heroes who really tirelessly ensure food gets on all our tables. And collectively, they have enormous influence over the future of food. They are clearly quiet revolutionaries, passionately pioneering better food in every corner of the world, whether that means making our food more nourishing, more sustainable, more equitable, or more resilient. We learned that SMEs are change makers in 5 different ways. We've sort of had to put some structure in there, say, well, what are we hearing? And the first one is that they integrate markets. So they strengthen supply chains, often where they're the weakest. They're the first kind of market players to come in and get those structures. Most obviously, they're linking smallholder farmers to markets. And in doing so, kind of establishing a relationship with those farmers so that then provide services that improve farm productivity and profitability. And it's evidence that this process clearly has an impact on reducing poverty and hunger, especially in the rural areas where those are most persistent. And I think we can hear that in Dr. Calibata's opening remarks about her experience across Africa. Secondly, and this is something that was really quite global, is that food SMEs create opportunities that improve equity. They're big job creators, and there's something about the universal nature of food that makes it an economic gateway for women, for youth, for indigenous and minority groups. These groups have a higher proportion of entrepreneurs and employees within food SMEs than you'd expect to compare if you compared them with the average business in any country. Thirdly, SMEs are amazing innovators. They are pioneering and scaling solutions for nutrition and sustainability, from zero waste packaging to alternative proteins to regenerative farming practices. Often their role is to tap into known technology or business models and then make these work in a very specific context where they have nuanced understanding or local connections. Fourthly, they embody resilience, and the SME response to COVID certainly showed us that emphatically. They are embedded within communities and landscapes, so they have no option but to deal with the shocks that come at them. Positively, they're small enough to be agile, so they pivot their business models and sustain the services to those communities really in the toughest of situations. They cannot go and leave the situation. They stick it out and make it work. And finally, SMEs, and especially the entrepreneurs who run them, are influencers. They really are inspiring, and they're so passionate about their products, their customers, their land, their staff. They're constantly advocating for better food, and they are close enough and trusted enough to be changing hearts and minds all across our food systems. And to make all that real, if you just show the next slide, Nadia, there's this wonderful image that came from DV Exelis, an SME in Nepal. They use clever apps so that consumers can source fresh fruit and vegetables from over 10,000 smallholder farmers. And I think in this picture, you can witness them integrating markets, creating economic opportunity, innovating solutions for sustainability and nutrition, obviously responding to the shock of COVID, and if only by their very example and the grace with which they seem to be turning up here, they certainly influenced me to believe in a better future for food. So yeah, thanks, Nadia. Those are the big ways we heard about the ways SMEs are driving change and being those quiet revolutionaries.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ian. And what a wonderful example. That image is just so moving to me. I love it. And we have other amazing everyday SMEs that will be speaking to us just now. You mentioned the diversity and passion of food entrepreneurs, and Bonolo certainly embodies that. Like, she's a woman entrepreneur, she's providing opportunities to some of the most marginalized farmers, many of them women, and giving life to often neglected local fruit crops. Bonolo, Maungo Craft is making nutritious, tasty products using what you have referred to as orphan crops. Tell us about Maungo Craft and why you decided to do that.
Thanks a lot, Nadia. Hi, everyone. Very happy to be on this call. Just a quick one. Maungo Craft is a company that makes preserves and sauces, and we use the indigenous crops of Botswana, and we pair them with contemporary flavors to give you unique flavor profiles. And what I mean by orphan crops is that orphan crops tend to be indigenous foods that are underutilized, under-commercialized, and the irony is that they tend to be full of minerals and vitamins and can play a role in combating climate change. Now, we as Maungo Craft use a fruit called the Morula fruit, and it started gaining popularity in the cosmetic scene because they extract Morula oil in order to make cosmetics. However, research has shown that to get to 12 tons of Morula oil, you need to go through 300 tons of Morula fruit pulp. So our question as a business was, well, what happens to all that fruit? So in order to combat food waste, we decided to form symbiotic relationships with Morula oil producers, in that they extract the oil and we get to purchase and make use of the fruit that would typically go to waste and turn that into preserves and sauces. And by doing so, we're actually promoting the growth of two industries at the same time, being cosmetics and food. And like you said, furthermore, by engaging with cosmetics companies, we're creating about 1,000 jobs down the value chain of harvesters and processors, who typically 70% of them tend to be women. And if I'm not mistaken, our company may be the largest user of the fruit in the country. So we are driven by growth, and the more we grow, the more jobs get created in both industries, which is so important to us. And the more consumers can enjoy natural products that are not bombarded with artificial preservatives, that are full of vitamins, that are also close to Mother Nature as possible. So our aim is to make indigenous or / orphan crops cool again, and we are reintegrating them back into the food system.
That's really amazing. Now, Luciano, I think you can probably relate to what Bonolo is describing in terms of, you know, doing the things that, taking advantage maybe of what's already there, then innovating based on that. And also some of the things that Ian has mentioned about running an SME. Metos Brazil is actually a technology business. Now, how does this relate to the food system transformation? Tell us first about Metos Brazil, and then that question.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you for the invitation to be here, sharing our experiences in the field. We deal with food systems directly at its source. So we're helping farmers to take better decisions based on real data from their fields. So we're giving them tools to work with better climatic intelligence and climatic resilience, because climate is really changing and we need to understand it so we can foresee what's coming and take better decisions in the field. What does this mean? A better informed decision for farmers means that he will have better results and he can be more efficient with the use of resources. So we are super aware that farming needs to go hand in hand with food production and with conservation of our environment. So when we are allowing farmers to make better decisions based on their fields, based on their weather, based on their climatic conditions, on their soil conditions, their insect, then they can use less fertilizer, they can use less pesticides, they can better use the resources that they necessarily need to use. And with this, we are influencing that we can produce more food and using less resources. So this is at the heart of what we do. We are super excited to be a part of this food system transformation. And we are hoping that ever more, year after year, we can reach more smaller farmers as well. What we see today is that bigger farmers, of course, already have lots of access to technology. But what is happening now is that technology is becoming cheaper and more accessible so that we can reach the smallholder and we can help him take these better decisions and be super efficient with the small piece of land that he has.
Amazing. These are really wonderful examples of the positive impact that SMEs are modeling for the future food system that we're all striving for. I commend you both for your courage and commitment. Ian, SMEs also operate in challenging environments. They face constraints to achieving even greater good when they want to. As you said, they're also innovative, they're creative, they're nimble. What kinds of actions are they proposing in the small business agenda? Will you tell us about this?
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you both to Luciano and Bonolo. I've tracked Bonolo for several years. We've done each other. I've tasted her delicious food and heard her story, and it's great to hear your story too, Luciano. And I know, the passion that drives them to have a positive impact, but equally, it's really difficult, that journey to grow a business and sustain the impact that you're having. So it's been amazing to listen to entrepreneurs and kind of listen deeply to what those common things are that need to change to unlock that impact. And there is an entrepreneur that won't be vocal in telling you what they need because they feel it very acutely. But we broadly have kind of bundled their asks into 3 different pathways that I'll unpack. Together, we think they offer a bit of a map about how to boost the role of SMEs in transforming our food systems. So the first pathway focuses on simply creating a business ecosystem in which food SMEs can thrive. So the food sector is burdensome, running a food SME is hard, and market elements are frequently the wrong size for them. But when entrepreneurs have a business environment which gives them a fair chance to compete in the market, then they thrive to the benefit of all of us, to consumers, producers, communities, nature, and investors. So we did hear lots of opportunities for cross-sector actors to try and strengthen that business ecosystem for food SMEs. We must reduce the cost of doing business. And this is specific for food SMEs. That includes things like improving the physical and digital infrastructure, regulations, and ensuring the rule of law. This was particularly important in lower income countries. We must improve access to finance. This was by far the most common request by SMEs everywhere in the world, who felt that financial products rarely met their needs. The timeline, the cost of capital, the way it was structured was not set up for them. Another key step, and again, this was mostly in emerging economies, that governments can ease the graduation of informal businesses into the formal sector. There is often a kind of barrier to go through that transition, but unless companies do, they won't really grow and deliver the value that they can for all of us. Another point is that at their best, large market actors like supermarkets or governments can use their buying power to lift small businesses and by intentionally sourcing from and supporting them. And actually, Bonolo, I know your story is a lot about how you get into the South African supermarkets right now and get on the shelves. Like, you know, if they can be giving you some good shelf space, that would be an amazing support. I know it would unlock a lot for you, and you're making your way through that journey. Lastly, we can target business support at food SMEs through initiatives like incubators and offering business development services, just things that kind of give people a hand up there. So that was the first bundle, just getting food SMEs thriving and an ecosystem for that. The second pathway is different. It's aiming to incentivize businesses to provide good food for all. And that's to say that the best businesses from kind of social or environmental perspective are not always the most competitive. So they struggle to scale up. Most consumers currently prioritize price above all other factors, and good businesses cannot outcompete those who deliver their products while externalizing their costs in terms of public health, natural capital, or social equity. So the food system will continue to fail us all until those incentives change. And again, cross-sector actors have opportunities to make this change. Firstly, we must ensure prices reflect the true cost of food. And there are instruments for doing that, but that is important to do in a way that also safeguards the affordability of food to poor consumers. If we start adding the costs of the environmental and health impacts into the way food is priced, we also need to make sure it's still affordable. And the scientific group of this summit has an excellent paper that is referenced that really lays out some ways of doing that. Secondly, there is a cultural shift required to create consumer demand for good food. Until we all value food for how it nurtures the health of our bodies, our landscapes, and our communities, then the preference for cheap calories will dominate the market signals. So those market signals need changing, and that is a cultural shift that a lot of players can play a role in changing. Lastly, and imagine this might touch some of your experiences, Luciano, is that we need to fast track the innovative entrepreneurs that promise positive disruption of our food systems. The kind of ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship is essential to the pace of change needed over the next decade. It's really hard to bring new ideas into the food system and get them so they can work within the rules. And so people need help with that. The last pathway, third one, is about an underlying issue that sits beneath these two, which is that we must increase the power of food SMEs within sector planning. Small businesses really have quite an isolated voices. They have their heads down running their business. So compared to government or large businesses, they are relatively underpowered in their ability to collectively influence decision-making, regulation, resource allocation, and cultural values within our food systems. And only once those power dynamics change could we expect to make progress on rebalancing food systems in favor of the SMEs that are pioneering good food for all. And that is especially true for the women entrepreneurs and those from other marginalized groups who both face additional barriers, and also, our impression is that they are the most fervent champions of change, and so have such an important role to play. So in terms of how we do this, kind of opportunities to act to address that power dynamic. First one, cross-sector actors must all elevate the voice of SMEs. Let's make sure they're consulted as, for example, regulations get changed or as sector programs get designed or financial products are taken to market, so that those interventions are right-sized for SMEs. Then let's also help structure SMEs into dynamic networks. In places like Belgium, where food SMEs organize together, they are better able to influence and also respond to national planning and the kind of unfolding future of the sector. And lastly, and this is really a kind of cross-cutting thing, we must plan and invest in food SMEs according to their very context-specific priorities. The changes needed by entrepreneurs in Singapore versus Tanzania, or indeed those for SMEs working on alternative proteins versus regenerative livestock, are different. So we have to be thinking about the SMEs in our space and what changes they specifically need. So overall, it's clear there's lots that can be done practically to ensure purpose-driven food SMEs are flourishing. And if cross-sector actors can provide that fertile ground, then pioneering SMEs, like many of you here today, are ready to revolutionize the food system.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be talking about that during the breakout room. So I'm sure we'll be getting lots of new ideas about what can be done and how we can do it together. So thanks, Ian. We need better business ecosystem. We need the right incentives, and we need greater power and voice. Let's remember that. Luciano, does that resonate with you? What are some of the specific challenges that you have, and what could you do more of if actions that are called for in the small business agenda were actually implemented?
Absolutely, that resonates a lot with us. Lots of points that Ian has showed us, they are really in the core of what we feel every day in our business. And as a dream, we have a dream of allowing farmers from all sizes to have a better use of their resources. So, for example, doing the harvesting, the planting, the spraying in the appropriate conditions. So when he knows more about his field, he can do this and he can have a better usage of resources. But how can we allow more farmers to be able to do so if the technology is still expensive and if we still have no infrastructure to reach all places? So here we reach the point that is currently in our way, but we are fixing it. But these points are in our way to make us reach our dream, that is make all farmers more effective. So we need better infrastructure. For technology to work on the field, we need that the sensors are connected to the internet. We need these sensors to be providing data. Only based on real data, we can make more informed decisions. So we need infrastructure to be in place so that more and more systems can be deployed. And as we deploy more systems, as we are installing more equipment and making this more popular, we see a global trend in the price of it going down. So everything gets cheaper when you have more. So if we have decent infrastructure in terms of communication networks, for example, in a matter of few years, and I've seen this over the past almost 10 years in which I work in this, is that the technology is cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every year. And this will become even more available when we have better infrastructure and connectivity, for example, so that we can reach more people. And with more deployments, as I said, we can reach more smallholders, which are currently underserved by the technologies that we have in the market. So there's still this huge, huge potential to be tapped here in terms of having better results in agriculture, harvesting more with less area with the same area, so that we don't need to open and deforestate more areas for this, because we already have enough. Also, to help more people to be able to reach these technologies, better finance tools are important to be in place for these farmers to be able to finance for these products. So also, it's very important that the food systems have more incentives and they can pay farmers fairly for the regenerative practices that they adopt, and also for the conservationist efforts that they adopt when they're preserving untouched area in their land. So it's everything working together to guarantee that the farmers can have better results, not only for him, but also for the environment.
Fantastic, a real systems approach. I see that people in the chat are agreeing with you, so it looks like you're hitting some right buttons there. Bonolo, what about you in Mongo Craft? Now, thinking of your challenges, what are the actions that would have the biggest impact on your business and on the food system as a whole?
Thank you very much for the question, Nadia. I completely resonate with the three pathways that Ian spoke about. And, and I'm going to be echoing quite a lot of that and just sharing a little bit of experience from what we have had on our end. Firstly, absolutely, running a food business is incredibly hard. It has a lot of times, it's very expensive, it's hard to get into, and progressing from micro to small business also has its unique challenges, especially if you're driven by good food for all and not just by making profit. I mean, just to give you an example about our business, we were home-based for a few years. and we only recently moved into a factory incubator. So we were operating in an informal space for a while, but we moved to a formal space. And can I just add that we've won 13 awards locally, regionally, internationally, but 11 of those we won them whilst we're operating from the house. So that shows that it's very possible to do big things, even if you're small scale. However, making that jump from informal to formal is hard because there's always these great expectations at every level. So when you're in the informal space, for example, they ask you, why are you not available in retail? Or when you're getting into shops, they ask you, why don't you have certifications? Why do you have a small marketing budget? Why don't you give away freebies like the big companies? Why don't you have merchandisers? So we're treated exactly like the big companies who have scale, who have money, who've built customer loyalty over the years. Even though our experiences can be night and day. So, moving from informal and formal can be very expensive and hard, but it's not impossible. It just takes time. And in terms of the actions that I resonate with, all of them make sense, but the ones that stand out to me the most are easing SME graduation from informal to formal. We tend to minimize what it takes for that jump to take place. It's quite a big jump. Creating consumer demand for good food. So really just consumers learning and knowing that, hey, you need to know what's going inside your body. It's not just about eating whatever's on the shelf, what's going inside your body. And a big one, like Ian mentioned, is improving access to finance. Most financial tools are not tailored for SMEs at all. And I'm just thinking of a time when we were in front of a financier seeking to get finance to grow our business, and they didn't seem to understand our model and how we go about making money from a distributor to retailer. It just confused them, and it made so much sense to us. And it's so key to elevate, and I think it's so key for SMEs to elevate the voice of other SMEs. For example, my business partner, Yemi, he is the secretary of the Natural Products Association of Botswana, where we're talking about building an industry, but you can't build an industry alone, right? You have to bring others along with you. You have to rally together. And let's be honest, naturally, SMEs tend to work together and support each other because we know how hard it is out there in the field. Working together to navigate the challenging spaces. But the good thing about SMEs is that we are tenacious and we will fight for what we believe in. And that energy is what will keep us going. So I really think we should keep rallying together and keep moving together to be able to see actual real change.
This is the passion that he was talking about. We see it everywhere, especially the ladies. So Ian, final words. This is the decade of action. How do SMEs then become central to it, adding on some of the things that have already been said, fantastic ideas, and really drive the food system transformation?
Wow. If listening to those two doesn't prove it, the decade of action is only going to succeed with food SMEs playing a dynamic role. They are our quiet revolutionaries. The summit is set to trigger action delivered by coalitions working through national pathways, sort of at national level. And I think it's at that country level that SMEs are most likely to feel changes to their business environment. So, we've concluded that it's really in those national processes and through those coalitions that we need to elevate the voice of SMEs to make sure that the summit's work that emerges really does then respond to SME priorities. And it's that idea, that concept, that's why the SME Pledge we're about to explore during the rest of this session is so important, because it allows food SMEs to state their intention that they're ready to drive positive change in their corner of the global food system. And then it brings together their voices behind a common ask for that supportive business environment. And it allows SMEs to offer their further involvement to steer the cross-sector collaboration that the summit will trigger across countries and supply chains. So be looking forward to explore that with everybody. But let's tap into this passion as a global, feels like a global tribe that we're connecting here, and gives me a lot of faith that we can pull off this food system transformation.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm loving the conversations. People are getting all excited in the chat. And please, I've seen a couple of hands go up. Don't worry, you will have a chance to speak. We have plenty of space and time for everybody. So we will have during the breakout session an opportunity for you to share and give us your ideas as well. So forgive me if I'm not calling on you now. It's not at this time that we'd like that, but I'm loving the fact that you're using the chat box as well. So feel free to keep using that. So with that, oh, sorry, I moved too quickly. I would like to thank Ian, Bonolo, and Luciano for a fascinating and instructive conversation. Really, thank you all for sharing and for all that you do. Now, let's move to the audience. It's your turn. So it looks like we have quite a few people joining us today. I think it's going to be really fun to see where you are in the world and what gives you the passion for the work. So during this session, we'll be asking you to answer the following questions that you can see on the slide. What will your company or organization do to improve the food system? And what do you need from others to boost this impact? We've already been talking about some of the things that we heard already during the process of consultation, but let's expand on that. I want to get a little bit of a commitment, a kind of a pledge on what it is that you personally, your company will do and what you need from others. As Bonolo said, we all have to work together. And so it's not unreasonable to expect that others will do things like Luciano mentioned, the infrastructure, you can't take care of that, you need someone else to do it. So let's do a little exercise on that. Now, in a minute, my colleague Barbara will share a link with you. And when you click on the link, you're going to get a world map that looks something like, hopefully I'm able to share this now with you. This. Somebody confirm you can see the map?
Looks good.
Excellent. Okay, you can see already what we did yesterday. This was a fun exercise. These are the people who joined us yesterday and were able to make their entries onto the map, where they were, what they do, what their impact is that they're committing to, and what they need. So if you're having trouble with this, or you happen to be on a device that you can't really access it, feel free to use the chat box function and do this exercise there as well. We will be saving all of it. So we'll be able to also get your entry, even if you're not able to put it on the map. But if you are able to put it on the map, all you have to do, this is very easy. Once you click on the link, which we'll be sharing in a minute in the text box, in the chat box, you just go here to this plus sign on the top right, and you click on that. And you get two options. One is to write the name of the city or country that you are in. The other is to drop your location in the map where you are. And so I'll just do a little exercise here to show you that I am in Brindisi, close to Brindisi, in the southern part of Italy. And I would like you to then put in, you see, you can type in here, the name of your company. And so I am going to put the name of one of my favorite companies around here, an SME that produces organic olive oil. And it's moving a little slowly. So if you can maybe see the name there. There we go. And then you can put the I will or we will and tell us what impact you will have. And then you can also type I need or we need, and tell us what you need. You can play around with this and you can add your website. You can add maybe a link to the website or to your Facebook page if you have that instead. You can just put an image that represents your company. Any of these things that you want to play around with, you are able to do. So the link has been shared before I called it, but that's okay. The link has been shared. So could you please now put in your information and we'll start calling out the ones that we see. Remember, name of your company, where you are, obviously you start there, then the name of your company, then the then what you will do, we will, and then what you need. Great. I see that the map is being shared. Fantastic. Now, I'm going to ask a couple of my colleagues, if you don't mind, Anne or Chiara, anything that is written in French, do you mind maybe calling it out? You can just click on it and you're able to read what it says. And then Ian, will you help me read around some of these? I'll try to find it myself now.
Yes, I can see which one's gone up, and it's actually a Mexican company, but they clearly speaking can write it well in English. So now you need to forgive my Spanish pronunciation here, but Conservare Materias Primas Liofilizadas. They say they facilitate food conservation. They will facilitate food conservation natural processes for SMEs. And what they need is they need to create a network of food producers that are currently having food expiration problems. So yeah, it sounds like an interesting and important part of reducing food waste.
Nice, nice. Oh, this is Ukraine. I can't read that. Brilliant. I see something in Nicaragua. If you don't mind writing the name of your company, what you will do to improve the food system, and what you need others to do. Oh my goodness, there's so many popping up, I can barely. Okay.
Yeah, I've got one, Lean Path in Portland, Oregon in USA. They say they will make food waste prevention everyday practice in the world's kitchens. They need commitment from food organizations to cut food waste in operations. More broadly, we need culture change such that individuals and organizations properly value food and focusing on the prevention of food waste in the first place. So yeah, it comes back to like how we value food, both culturally and economically, and whether that's how that's distorting.
By the way, if I can just give one small instruction, because it might be something that people struggle with. If you've put your company on the map and then it shows your location, and then you haven't been able to type in and the box has disappeared, you can click on your entry, just hover around it, and on the top right hand, you see a little pen sign. That's edit. So then you can go back in to your entry and add some additional information. So if that's one of the reasons why I'm just seeing locations and not seeing anything else, try with that and see if that helps. So I am picking around. There is one in Colombia, Bogota. Let's see, nothing there. Oof. Nice. Oh, here's one in Denver, Colorado. We will address food insecurity. This is Huerta Urbana, 2Gen Farm. It's an incubator. We will address food insecurity by developing an urban farm training program that supports low-income residents in an earn while learn model to grow produce for a pay-for-what-you-can farmers market that will bring local organic produce in a culturally relevant manner to our community. Wow. We need the broader grocery industry to work with us on how this type of distribution can be replicated on a larger scale so that food access becomes more of a utility. Brilliant. Yeah, this what you mentioned with Bonolo, Ian, about working with the supermarkets, that relationship needs to be improved for sure. Anything in French, Chiara, Anne, or Spanish? Maria, if you want to read, I haven't.
I've been checking the French-speaking countries, but they've all been posting in English so far.
Ah, okay.
There's Mauritania. I just thought. You want to go ahead and here's the one in Mauritania? No, not Mauritania, in Senegal. So Anta Diamagweye, she's the co-founder of the enterprise Medieval Flavors. Oh, you're there. So it's been created to value the local flavors and the local know-how. That's Senegal.
Nice. Remember, you can also post in the text box, in the chat box, so that we can maybe read them from there. In fact, there is one here.
I've got one, Nadia. That's nice because it's actually from a verification scheme. So it's called Produced in Northumberland. It's up in Ontario, Canada. And yeah, they say they will continue to listen to our SMEs, working closely to provide them with a collective voice. The scheme is supported by Northumberland County Council with over 120 SME food and drink businesses in Northumberland. We will continue to work closely with our colleagues in public sector procurement and national government. We need supermarkets to provide good food for our people, with healthy food provision at the top of their agenda rather than profit and price. Healthy primary food is the most important gift for our children. It starts with pregnancy right through to our elderly. Need more collaboration and education at the forefront. So really interesting, actually, a verification scheme being used to network together SMEs, promoting kind of a sense of provenance, where the food comes from in that local place, and then advocacy, you know, around a bigger agenda that's about promoting good food for all. So something really powerful about that story that touches on some, you know, perhaps different aspects of the report and the messages we heard.
Beautiful. There's a company here, Golden Sweet Spirit in Ecuador. I see that you're typing. I love the name. Let's see what is coming up. In the meantime, France, oh my gosh, it's so nice to see all this.
I've got some friends in Wales here, Wright's Food Emporium in Llanaddi. Oh, I probably butchered that Welsh pronunciation, in Carmarthen. They say we will provide a market for the produce of regenerative agriculture as a restaurant and as a shop. And we need to create an economic context which reflects the true cost of food production and where the legislative framework is responsive to the need of SMEs. So again, that's, you know, it seems a lovely example of a very specific food market and shop, you know, kind of local area, passionate about food and reflecting that, you know, businesses like theirs can only thrive when the wider economic context changes in favor of integrating the true costs of food.
Nice. I've got a good one here. Sahel Foods. This is, we will provide healthy, nutritious foods from spiny, shriveled native desert trees, making rural smallholders, especially women, obtain better livelihoods in the process. We will then continue supporting these smallholders in regreening of our dry lands. We need legislation and policy that favors local food producers and or eco-restoring enterprises more. Nice, the combination with the regreening, conservation, trying to regenerate the land, definitely the types of things for which incentives would work well.
There's one in Benin, Nadia, French.
Yes.
So it's called Wura's Feed, and they produce, they have like biological production of loofah, that is a material that is used for bath sponge. And so, yeah, they're into bioproduction and they have a global vision. They want to have impact in the world for their products, and they need access to finance and partners for the distribution of their products, like at scale. And also they call for need for technology in order to improve their business. Interesting.
There's one from Cameroon, Clandy's Raw Food Distribution Agency. We seek to bridge the gap of agricultural products and their prices between the rural areas and urban sectors, improve on greenhouse agro-farming and agricultural sustainability. We need collaborations, transport facilities, and farming tools.
Now, here's one that's not an SME, but it's a support organization, and these are just as important to the food system transformation. Makerere University Business School. We work with SMEs in enhancing inclusive business models that foster growth. We need frameworks and policy that allows interactive ecosystems.
There is a really interesting one from Guatemala called La Marquetina. And the interesting thing about this one is that they are supporting women that have low education level, and they're providing skill building in order to actually support them in gaining new opportunities of jobs opportunities and new opportunities even outside of the food and agricultural space. But they also work with agriculture farmers as well as landowners, it sounds like. And something that they really need, which is interesting, is really simple financial support and access to finance. So this one really aligns with the one Ian was talking about around creating opportunities to improve equity. It's a really lovely one.
Nice. Okay, I'm back in Ecuador. Golden Sweet Spirit. We are working in the ancient superfoods in the rural superfoods in the rural area of the Andes. We're creating value proposition with native fruits and the growers in the export markets. I think you're still telling us what you need, but this is great. I like that.
I like just to flag this one here about smart fish, and fisheries are super important to the Food System Summit and the future of food. So just worth flagging for that reason alone. But smart fish, they make fishermen earn more by fishing less. It's breaking the negative cycle of overexploitation and poverty, improving the quality of life of the fishing communities and the health of the Mexican seas, allowing consumers to make purchases that contribute to the sustainability of the marine ecosystems and the welfare of Mexican artisanal fishermen. They say they need to learn more how to keep growing, how to engage more customers, how to grow without losing focus on why we want to grow. So they sound like a business that's figured out a core business model and their place in the market and have got a foothold. But actually, businesses like that, it's a stretch. It's a new set of skills to then grow a business, and people need business advice and kind of mentorship and support. So it speaks to that piece about targeting business support of food SMEs because of all that they have to offer.
From Madagascar, there's International Raw Materials Limited. We'll continue crop nutrition trials ongoing through the pandemic, and we will continue to finance local distribution of crop nutrients.
Cubic Farm Systems. We empower farmers with commercial scale indoor growing technology to localize food production while maximizing cubic space to benefit people, planet, and the economy. Did you read this one already, Ian? No, it's not the one in Canada. We need to educate consumers and future farmers on their role in growing and selecting food in a responsible, affordable, and healthy way. Consumer education. We've talked about this as well during the process of the dialogues, and it's obviously been mentioned also as one of the issues in the report, how to change the mindsets.
And there's one gone in French in the chat box here. I can see from, my French isn't quite good enough, but it's from Goma in North Kivu in the DRC. Which is, I know, it's a very hard place to be operating. So
it's just been posted. Shall I translate it? So it's in Ngoma, producing products derived from cocoa, cocoa butter and different spreadables and cocoa powder. Yes. In territories in Bene and Walikale in DRC. We've got the problem of insecurity. The culture of cocoa contributes a means of resistance of women, a resilience of women and young people in the two territories victims of armed conflict, continued armed conflict. We demand the government and our partners to create a climate, a business climate, which allows us to better exercise our activities and we need financing and technical support. Obviously, very challenging environment there.
Yeah, that speaks. There was this piece about the rule of law that came up in a few places, just having that basic stability, whether that was actually in Central America, that came through in the previous consultations as an issue, as well as some conflict affected states in Africa and Asia.
Nice. Okay, well, this was amazing, fantastic, and I'll need just a second to load up my new screen. Alice, do you mind? Yeah, thank you. I will close this one, and so that we can go to the breakout session where we can get into this a bit more. So thank you all really for your participation and your enthusiasm. It is clear that your contributions are well aligned with those highlighted in the report, and I'm really happy for that. So is my screen up yet? No.
Not yet.
Please. Play this first. To three that stays in the room is going, so you're not splitting. If you're in the main room, if you want to continue this conversation in English, please stay in the room. So don't select one of the options. We will have separate rooms, one in French and one in Spanish. So if you would like to continue this conversation in either French or, are you seeing my screen now? The right one, not the one with my notes. Okay, great. So we will be going into one in Spanish, one in French, and the one that stays here will continue in English. So when we first bring up we open up the breakout rooms, you will be able to join one of those two. Again, if you want to go in Spanish, choose my group. I'll be joined I'll be paired up with Maria, who will help me during that process, or choose Anne's room, which will be in French. It'll say on there, so you'll be able to see it. She'll be paired up with Chiara. So the idea of the breakout session is we've drafted this very short pledge that you see up on your screen. We'll go through it again in the groups. We'd like you to reflect upon this, bring some life to it with specific examples, and then finally endorse it so that we can collectively put it forward as the SME pledge for the Food System Summit. We'll be presenting this initially at the pre-summit later this month, and so there'll be an opportunity to continue collecting endorsements all the way until the main summit in September. Feedback on this from the Global Dialogue yesterday, we got that we need to add some wording to reflect a sense of urgency of what needs to be done. And so we'd love to hear any feedback that you have as well, so we can adjust it, adapt it a bit, and then at the end, after this, we'll be sending it to you to read over, think about, and endorse. So Barbara, I think you can open up the rooms now. If you know how to join the rooms, you just go at the main menu, you go to where it says breakouts. I think it says breakout or breakout rooms. Yeah, breakout rooms. And it should pop up with the three options that you have. Now I'm going to stop giving instruction. Rishab will continue, will stay and take care of this room for the rest of you in English. I'm going to leave the room. So are the rooms open yet, Barbara?
Open now.
Open now. Brilliant. Okay. So in about 30 minutes, 25 minutes, we'll come back and we'll hear what happened in those rooms and share with one another and go to the next part of the session. So I'm going to go to the Spanish one now. Rishab, I leave this with you. Good luck.
Thank you, Nadia. I'm going to give everyone a few seconds to just quickly make their exit and go into their breakout rooms, then we can begin in this section. Perfect. I'm still seeing over 100 participants here. Just checking that you all want to be in the English language room, and if not, you want to move to the French-speaking or Spanish-speaking rooms, please select that. We haven't had a lot of people move into the breakout rooms as yet. So just one last time, if you need interpretation or you'd like to move into a French-speaking or Spanish-speaking room, please go ahead and do that, and we can begin with the English-speaking room. A very good evening to you from where I am, which is Nicosia in Cyprus. My name is Rishabh Sandaliya, and I've been handling outreach for the Wasafiri team in Asia, and I'm joined by my colleague Alice here, who will be our rapporteur and taking notes from this room, also from the Wasafiri team. And we're excited to see what we get for the next 25 or 30 minutes. We had an invigorating breakout room yesterday, and I'm sure there's much to be told today as well. Just some notes in terms of how we should go ahead with this, because we're going to have a lot of people wanting to speak. I'm going to request that if you do wish to speak, please try and put on your camera. It's wonderful to have a face attached. No worries if not. And please raise your hand so we can know when to call upon you. Apart from that, I'm going to begin by asking everyone to very quickly over the next 15 or 20 seconds, please just mention in the chat box where you're from. So just your name, your country, and the SME or organization we work with, so we know who's in this breakout room. And we know what to attribute from the outputs of this breakout room. So I'm just going to go ahead and type that in the chat box myself.
While you do that, Rishabh, I just want to say a quick hello. Hi, everyone. I'm seeing some familiar faces and names. So good to see you all coming and rejoining.
And once everyone does that, I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen so we can quickly overlook and just checking that you can see my screen, Alice.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Perfect. Okay, so we're here with the SME Pledge, and the idea is to turn over the microphone to you, the SMEs in the room, and hear your thoughts about the pledge and solicit your feedback and how we can actually make the pledge more actionable. I'm just going to quickly read the 3 points in the pledge. The first was, I pledge my business will help forge food systems that are more nourishing, sustainable, equitable, and resilient. I ask governments, larger businesses, consumers, and other partners to create conditions for purpose-driven food SMEs to flourish. And finally, I offer to contribute to the action coalitions and national pathways where these are of strategic relevance to my business. I'm also going to request that if you're not talking currently, please switch off your mic and we can begin. Based on our feedback and experience from yesterday, I'm going to try and focus our conversation on the first 2 points in the pledge so that we have a little more time to hand over. So just going around the room, who would like to start? We'd love to hear more from you about how your business is currently helping forge food systems that are more nourishing, sustainable, equitable, and resilient. So examples of how you're doing this, how you think we can do this going forward, and how messages you want to share with us and the summit, and of course your peers across the world. Who'd like to go?
I think Hostef, we have a hand raised if you want to unmute. All right.
Divyajyoti, you have your hand up. Would you like to go?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Divyajyoti from Rigdam Healthy Snacks. I am from India. We are working in the millet space. And as we know, millet is a drought-resistant super crops, which is being forgotten all these years. So we are trying to, bring out smart, snacks out of millet. And we are closely working with research institute like ICRISAT and Indian Institute of Millet Research, and very closely work with FPOs and farmers for our raw materials. And we see that, currently we have more than 80% of our workforce are women. So like, we are working in millet since, because of this current environmental issues. So millet is the, last crop that is the answer for this. Because of the green revolution, more focus went into paddies and other crops which were more, water intensive. So we need to encourage the farmers who have shifted to other crops. So as a stakeholder in the whole value chain, so we strive to, bring out more millet, innovative millet products to the people, because it is healthy for the people, healthy for the, good for the farmers and good for the planet. That is how we are trying to, bring out nourishment.
Thank you, I'm going to interrupt you and say thank you for that. So moving to crops that are less water intensive and incentivizing farmers to move to that. I see other hands up. Godfrey, you had your hand up. Would you like to say something? Godfrey, you're not there. I unfortunately can't see names anymore. My friend seems to have frozen.
Hey, Anna Hammonds has a hand up. Go for it.
Hi, Anna Hammond from Matriarch Foods. We upcycle farm surplus and fresh cut remnants into healthy, delicious products for food banks, hospitals, schools, and general food service. And that's our pledge. That's the core of our business. I think that so many of these companies, if not all of them, are already committed to these pledges. I said this in the chat. And what we really need is international commitment to supporting small businesses to do what we're all already doing at a larger scale. So one of the pieces I feel that's missing from this conversation is, the activity of the, 11 major food companies worldwide that are the other 50%, partnering with these smaller businesses to help us scale and do better, globally around not only, creating greater food security for everyone, which is possible if we utilize everything that's already being grown, into a better system and put some infrastructure in place. So I just wanted to kind of, think about maybe changing this dialogue a little bit about, what can they do more strongly, as opposed to us continuing to reiterate our already incredibly strong, obvious commitment to these. And I'm curious, kind of sending back the questions to the organizers of this, how are these messages going to actually get activated once we spend, another few hours talking about them. So sorry if I sound a little grumpy, but I just, I feel like, we're already committed, it's like everything that every company on this call is doing is, helping their community in some way, diverting waste from landfill, feeding people in need. And we need more international commitment to what we are doing, and partnerships with larger food companies.
Thank you for raising a very, very important point, Anna. I would say just I think the fact that we're here in this setting, doing this for the first time, reaching out to SMEs at this level, I think is a markedly different way in terms of how this has been done in the past. And I think it's a very, very important first step. I am sure there are others on this call who could answer that question better than I can. So if you'd like to respond, please feel free. If not, I'm going to go ahead and ask Edwin, would you like to say something? Edwin, you have your hand up.
If not, I see Bobby has a hand up, or Valerie. Feel free to unmute and.
Let me put on my camera. Yes, I hope everyone can hear me. Good evening from Uganda. My name is Bobby, and our business is Mara Agribusiness Limited. We work with youth coffee farmers, basically integrating youth in the coffee value chain, simply because majority of the coffee farmers in Uganda are old people. So we see the sustainability of the coffee industry stronger with youth engaged in the industry. And also for sustainability, what we're doing is integrating bees into these coffee farms, because bees again have a very complementary role to the productivity of coffee. And so with bees, we are also integrating trees, forages into this coffee, so that issues of climate change and all that is addressed. And we bulk back the coffee from these farmers, process into a final product to put in the market. And so what we would really need is partnership with impact-driven organization through which we can market the coffee. And because in that way, we can trickle back the margin from the coffee sales, so as to support the youth who are growing the coffee, keep them motivated to continue growing the coffee, but also to attract more other youth to join the coffee industry, and thereby move from urban areas to more rural areas where the coffee is grown. And I think in that way, the future of coffee will be more sustainable.
Thanks so much for that, Bobby. I really appreciate hearing you talking about partnerships with impact-driven organizations, and that resonates, I think, with what Anne was saying about needing partnerships with larger food companies. I also just want to re-echo what Anne was saying about the need for the greater infrastructure, global commitments to support SMEs to do what they're already doing. Valerie, do you have anything you want to add to that sentiment, or feel free to share your own thoughts as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. First, thank you guys for having me. I honestly appreciate it. I would think that I speak on behalf of the group by just saying that I'm honored to be here. There's a lot of different things that need to be addressed and communicated and understood for all of us business owners, and for the bigger picture and partnerships and working together. So this opportunity, it's not lost on me, and I really appreciate that. So I agree. I take the pledge fully. I am very passionate about the Sustainable Development Goals, and I actually had the honor of working on them in 2020, and I have implemented them into my business. I think that my business touches on most of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have, equality for women and men. We have partnerships for the goals, justice for the goals, health and wellness. There's zero poverty, which we're all working towards, the climate change. And I think that there's a lot of things in general that we really need to, hopefully one day we're trying to accomplish by 2030, right? So, like I said, I think that it's just like a huge honor to be able to work with so many different companies that are doing what we all think is very important. So the pledge is, primary, I think, and those partnerships for the goals are really imperative for small businesses like myself and most of us here to scale and grow. So, I'll tell you a little bit about my company. Is a farm to table company. We're bringing products to the market in August, but we are looking to do a a drive-in or like a actual brick and mortar. So it's, like I said, it's something that we would need to work with a lot of different people on, because it's a large concept, it's a large idea. So we're making a lot of, we're
that's a really good point you raised there, Valerie. I'm sorry to cut you there, but I'm just going to ask.
No, it's okay.
That's a really good point to segue into our second part of the pledge, which is asking governments, larger businesses, consumers, and other partners to create conditions for purpose-driven SMEs like yours to flourish. So perhaps a good time to go around the room and ask other SMEs in the conversation, how can we do this? What are the asks we have of governments and other businesses? And what are your successes in this space? How have you managed to do this so far? What are the tips and what is the way forward for this? I can see some hands up again. Joseph, would you like to say something? Or Claire, would you like to unmute and go?
Sure. Well, I perhaps wanted to say more about the creating the conditions for purpose-driven SMEs. We are able to create foods from wild trees that nobody thought were of any value and create quality foods from them. We're able to integrate rural women into inclusive businesses around this. And we're able to keep growing this, but like any food producer in this part of the world, we suffer from things that we feel are unfair competition that makes the market much more difficult, and the prices need to be very, very competitive, making it very hard to run things financially. And I think policy-wise, a lot could be done to make the playing field a bit more level between the big players who don't necessarily respect the environment, who don't provide livelihoods for smallholders, and companies who actually try to do that, who try to be have good social values and ethical values together with the food they produce.
Thank you. An important point. So would you suggest that we need stronger policies from governments? So what exactly would you be suggesting in the sense here?
Yes, I think we need strong policies. I think we need policies that also defend and protect the smaller producers, because our markets are being flooded by, for example, here in Niger in West Africa, we're flooded by very cheap palm oil from Indonesia. We're flooded by very cheap, low quality rice from Asia. And we are, of course, in poor countries, so it's very hard to compete when food prices of imported products are so extremely low, which makes it hard to break out of the vicious environmental and social cycles that we are trapped in as humanity. And those foods are often even subsidized in their home countries. They're getting energy at very low costs, so we have very high energy costs here. We have high taxes, etc. So we don't feel like we have a very level playing field, even though we're supposed to be on our home ground.
Okay, an important point there, Joseph. Thank you very much. Would you like to go? Sorry, go ahead, Robert, please.
I think that's the essential of it. I think if we want to promote local businesses and small-scale purpose-driven businesses, then players who are in their home ground should also have benefits from being in their home area.
Thank you. Edwin, would you like to say something? And unmute.
Unmute, sorry. Claire, you're muted again. Not sure how that keeps happening. Okay, sorry. Along with what Joseph is saying, we're in the bioherbicide industry, and the herbicide industry in the world is $34 billion. And it's really, about 5-6 companies that monopolize that whole, the whole industry. And there's no biocontrol bioherbicide industry. So for a small business, it's quite intimidating for us to be able to manage the regulations that we have to go through, because we go through the same regulations as a huge company would go through. So we're seeking harmonization of biocontrol regulation in countries across Africa, because of course, right now, every country has their own policy, which will be really labor intensive and expensive for us, especially if we don't have a large legal team.
So that's something that we're seeking. And also, if you're interested in our product, it's called the Toothpick Project. It's a weird name because we transfer our fungal inoculum to village levels on toothpicks. And we are seeking last mile partners. So you can reach out to us at toothpickproject.org. But thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about how we can shift the policy. I'm part of the Food Systems Game Changer Lab, and this is something that we're working on I'm on the agroecology cohort. So taking notes from everybody today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Claire. Rishab, if you don't mind, I'll just kind of summarize right now what I've been hearing so far before we move forward. I think two large themes have arisen. Partnerships, which it sounds like many of you are already engaged in really powerful partnerships with other NGOs, with incubators, with other impact-driven organizations, larger food companies, but more of this is necessary, and more of this kind of spaces that are really driven towards our own commitments to action, as well as calling on others in the global space to commit to action is essential. And I'm also hearing these policies that defend and protect smaller producers is also extremely important. And we've heard an example from West Africa about market flooding from imported goods. And then thank you just for Claire, for your input just now about your example in the bioherbicide industry. Barb, I'm seeing your hand raised, or was raised. I would love to hear from you, just if you want to build on that, and specifically Rishab's question on calling on governments, larger businesses and companies to create better conditions. Please go ahead.
I think what we need is more transparency in the industry. I think what we need is policies that force all companies to disclose what they are doing, whether it's on the sustainable side, whether it's not, whether it's using local ingredients, whether it's not. And I think that's one of the largest ways that we can get traction into the consumer, is by them understanding exactly what we do. And we can say that we do all these things, but then the big companies will say, well, so do we. Well, no, let's prove it. That's what I want. The other thing that I think is important is the larger companies that we compete against have much larger marketing budgets. And this has been mentioned time and time again. And it's until we get our voice in front of that end customer, like even what the young lady with her sauces and jam, sorry, I don't remember your name, but she was saying, they're saying you need to do the giveaways, you need to do all this kind of things. Our consumer is the one that is the final person that we need to address. And whether we need extra help with marketing our products out there and giving the customer another alternative, or having everything transparent so that we're playing on a level playing field, those are the policies that I believe will help us move forward.
Thank you. Jillian, you had your hand up. Would you like to add to that?
Yes, hello. My name is Jillian Heyshaw. I am an attorney and founder of Farms. And before I started my nonprofit about 10 years ago, I worked for U.S. Department of Agriculture in the Office of Civil Rights in D.C. under Vilsack. And I've contributed a bit to the Black Farmers Act and the Warnock Bill. But another issue with policy is, of course, discrimination. I provide free legal services to small rural farmers and technical assistance, not only to Black and brown farmers here in the States, but we also have programming in Sierra Leone, Haiti, Trinidad, and South India. And the problem that I'm finding is lack of finance, and also there needs to be more global structure regarding bankruptcy. I also have a practice, a bankruptcy practice separate from farms, and there needs to be more debt restructuring in terms of bankruptcy protection for farmers, whether that's in India, particularly in India with the Black Letter Law coming out in November. And then also when it comes to large corporations and the passage of the global tax reform, worldwide. I think that the tax incentives that were given, a portion of that needs to go to NGO funding of food and farming. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jillian and Rashad. If you don't mind, I'm seeing Benolo actually in the comments responding to what Yosef said earlier, and then also leading into the need for financial tools. Benolo, if you don't mind, could I call on you real quick to unmute yourself and just share a little bit about what you wrote in your comment? Okay, she may be away from her computer right now. Do we have anyone else that wants to speak to this financial infrastructure angle and the need for increased access to finance to add some more depth to your own experience?
Maureen, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to say something? Please unmute. Go ahead, Maureen.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank for inviting us for this privileged summit. So myself, Moin Mohammed, I run a startup called Hire My Farmer. So I'm from India. So I have identified few problems in the journey for the past 4 years, which I have seen. So basically, I am from a background of information technology. So where I have served for multiple service-based companies. So what I see is like, so the farmer's service is not getting promoted to the enterprise. So we could see like there is very less transparency in the data, and as well as there is no system to update the exact data to provision the records of the agriculture database. And at the same time, there are major players in the ecosystem like bankers and insurances are playing a major role. So where these smallhold farmers couldn't be able to survive in paying back their debts. And I could also see the farmer producer organizations which are saying that they are helping the farmers, but it is not happening. But the only thing is like they are making the contracts with the huge organizations. So the post-harvest aggregation, especially, it's not happening in the farmers' ecosystem. So where they couldn't be able to access the warehouses and the processing units, especially. So these are all the main reasons. So where the farmer service couldn't be able to connect it to the market linkages. So if we as a company, Hire My Farmer, we are trying to bring the dignity for the farmer service. So where by facilitating these post-harvest aggregation services for free of cost to the farmer, but for the first time, like we are giving the job work to be paid by the customers, and moreover, the supply and demand game will end up in the ecosystem if we facilitate these farmers and the cluster of regions by facilitating the post-harvest services, like especially these warehouses and as well as the processing units. So we onboard the farmers to our centralized system, and we maintain the transparency, and at the same time we also onboard the nearby warehouses and nearby processing units for these farmers. And
Thank
we
you,
showcase this transparency to the customers. So this is what we are doing, and
thank you.
We are expecting support from the bigger organizations. Thank you so much for providing.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for sharing that and the important point about the additional post-harvest services. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our breakout room. I know we probably have a minute left or so. But would you like to respond to that final comment? I see your hand is up, and then we're going to close out. And thank you all for your time, and apologies for the video faults.
Hi, just sorry, I had a problem with the video earlier on. Just to respond to the question I've asked earlier on, when Joseph was talking about the fact that we have to harvest in bulk, which means we have to put up a lot of money up front And typically financiers don't want to give you money because, you know, you're risky. They don't know if you're going to sell. So in terms of policy and financial tools, we could look at payment systems where maybe SMEs are allowed to get to pay maybe in like 6 months time after they've sold their products, not expected to pay immediately when they get financing. So just to consider financial tools that are empowering for SMEs to grow. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's it. Alice, would you like to quickly summarize what you've heard in the last couple of minutes and close us out?
No worries. Thanks everybody for your participation and sharing. I think we've got everybody back in the main room now. So I'll wait to share my conclusion and pass it over to you, Nadia.
Hello. Buenos días.
Nadia, I think you're muted. Nadia, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, the switch from the breakout room. I was just saying, welcome back, everybody. I hope that you had a great discussion. We certainly did in our room, and I was afraid I might come back speaking Spanish, but it looks like I'm speaking English. And Alice, actually, it was a nice segue from Rishab to you, because I was going to ask you now during the facilitator feedback to go first.
Awesome, thanks Nadia. Well, we had participation in our group from all over among the English speakers from Nigeria, Canada, the US, UK, Zimbabwe, Kenya, just to name a few. And we started our conversation talking about partnerships with different stakeholders across the different parts of the supply chain and value chain that are absolutely important, which aligned with the SME Pledge. Some SMEs talked about their partnerships with impact-driven organizations that help marketing products. We also talked about the need for small businesses to have facilitated partnerships with larger businesses to create greater pathways and opportunities for communication and collaboration there. And then we moved into talking a lot about policies, primarily policies that we call on government and global organizations and local national organizations to support with. And that we talked a lot about policies that defend and protect smaller producers. One SME from West Africa spoke and talked about how in their market, there's a lot of competition from imported goods from larger companies who get subsidies from their home countries, which means that the market's flooded with cheaper, low quality products. We talked about the need for transparency, policies that force all companies to disclose exactly what they're doing and their need to disclose proof to illustrate and back it up. And we talked about the need for marketing, that consumers are really the end users of SME products, and they're the ones driving that change in the food system. So how can SMEs get greater support and coordination to reach consumers more broadly and more efficiently? And lastly, we talked about financial infrastructure, which I know we've talked about a lot already in this dialogue, but we had examples on needing debt restructuring to protect farmers against bankruptcy. And we had a lawyer in our group who spoke specifically to the black letter law in India and how that's a really essential improvement that's needed. And we talked about increasing financial tools and policy that can make it easier to create provisions for companies who are trying to do unconventional things to make that easier and more straightforward for them. So in conclusion, our SMEs in our group were very supportive of the pledge. We had one SME even say, all of us are already committed to these pledges. So we're looking forward to action among ourselves and also calling on action from the global community and the UN to help drive the action from this pledge forward.
Excellent. That's great. Can I ask?
Bonsoir,
Maria,
vous me suivez? C'est Véronique Bichak.
Can we talk about our group, Maria?
Yes, absolutely. So I think there was a lot of alignment and a lot of shared themes with what Alice just shared. But to share a little bit more in detail in terms of what our group was talking about, a lot of the conversations navigated and circumvented around policies and regulations. I thought it was really interesting that many folks from all corners of the Latin American region really recognize that there is opportunity, significant opportunities to improve the standing policies and regulations, particularly to recognize and make it more in service to the needs and challenges that SMEs are facing. We heard how SMEs are particularly vulnerable, and in certain countries, there are significant opportunities to improve those policies to support SMEs. We also learn about, we talk a lot about how SMEs provide such a multidimensional role, and they actually take a role as advocates for indigenous knowledges to really support the exploration of regional production versus scalability and stepping into global markets, and the opportunities that are around prioritizing sustainability goals, soil management, and health through policy advocacy. We learned a little bit about Goldenberry. We had one particular SME representative that shared with us a lot about Goldenberry and the opportunities there from local production to global consumption and the role that healthy foods play. From there, we also talk about female producers and really how important it is to recognize female producers in food systems, how the first step when it comes to recognizing female producers is through collecting data and through public policy, and really to achieve equitable policy making, not only recognizing the role women play and gender equity, but also actually taking a step from gender equity and the role that Indigenous communities play as the foundation for sustainability and tracking sustainability and actually advocating for sustainable food systems. We also talk a little bit about, I have here in my notes, oh yeah, and the last thing that we talk about here is around the role of local produced food and locally produced food for internal consumption versus the role of producing food for international markets. I really love what Maria Jimena from Colombia said. She said food security starts at home, it starts in our houses, in our counties, in our countries. The priority that we often have as certain countries, particularly in Latin America and in the Latin American region, to produce regional products in order to have them for external exports, it's actually a lot of missed opportunities as food security starts at home, and we need to really prioritize the role SMEs have in supporting local production of healthy foods for local consumption. And last but not least, we heard a little bit from Teresa from Bolivia, who talked about the support in government and the role government plays. So I think the major theme here is there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to policies and when it comes to regulations and legislature, and there's a lot of opportunity to really support SMEs more broadly.
Thanks so much, Maria. I would just add, there was quite a lot of, we started by asking about the pledge, and people were very much in favor of the pledge. There was a recommendation, as we had yesterday, about the urgency to be a little bit stronger on the word ask. And so we need to sort of play, we were saying, you know, somewhere between ask and demand. Is there a word between those two so that we're not too strongly demanding, but not too softly asking? So we'll see how we can manage that one. Thanks, Maria, and thanks to the group. Chiara.
So I will start. I think that my connection is a bit crazy, but anyways, I will try. So we first started by basically some examples of positive impact that our entrepreneurs are having in their production systems by mostly relying on local products that also have a healthy impact on consumers. So consumers' health, I think it's one of the most important points that we got, and the idea that a very good added value to the productions. Can you actually hear me?
Yes, you're breaking up a little bit, but we're hearing you. Keep going.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go on, Chiara. Anne, I don't know if you want to jump in on this one.
And you need to unmute.
Sorry,
Anne, are you there?
and maybe you should go.
Okay. Yep, we've lost Chiara. Sorry about that. These technical glitches will happen. Is Anne able to?
Yes,
go on.
I've unmuted now. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, we had a whole range of countries from Benin, from Burkina Faso, from DRC, and some of the key takeaways are from the first part of the pledge are to rely on and boost local products and local consumption, to support, give support to women-led enterprises and local cooperatives to provide more income, to produce products of good quality to preserve consumers' health. We, amongst the businesses, we had production of cocoa, we had wheat flours for chapati in Benin, and we also had people working in production of processing peanuts. So some of the needs that people have, the needs for security with government support, and this was a particular plea from the DRC, where they really have a fundamental problem for security of the women going to harvest the cocoa. And they really desperately need support from the government to have security for the women there. They need government support in accessing financing and accessing market, helping to employ women, and significantly improving logistics and infrastructure in order to actually get their products to market. So that's what the main feedback from our session.
Super, thanks very much, Anne.
A lot of common themes with the other groups.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you so much to the three of you and to the facilitators as well. It is great to start to see the pledge really kind of starting to take shape. I love how people are wordsmithing a little bit, but not so much. And so we're going to come up with a really good statement at the end. Now, I would like to invite our conveners to provide a few reflections and concluding remarks. It is really a pleasure to introduce Pablo Rapsuk, who is the Agri-Food System Officer from the Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean, and Robin Anderson, who's the Director General of the International Agri-Food Network. Pablo, can I offer you the floor first?
Hello, Nadia. Just double checking if my audio is okay.
It's good.
Okay, my remarks are prepared in Spanish. So just very briefly though, I wanted to say hello to everybody and congratulate Wasafiri for an awesome performance with these dialogues. You have been very efficient and I think we're on the right track. Just one more thing, also before I jump into my prepared remarks. I was in one of the breakout rooms and it was really fascinating the feedback that we got. I just want to highlight a couple of things I took note. We had Jillian talking about the issue of discrimination that has to be taken into consideration. Also, Barb mentioned the issue of transparency. And then we had Joseph talking about the issue of unfair competition, subsidies. And we had Anna talking about, we're talking about a pledge from the SME side, but what about the role of large companies and their responsibility. I think that's also something very important that we have to take into consideration when we wrap up this meeting. That being said, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do my remarks. They are in Spanish because, you know, I was thinking about Western Hemisphere, most of us is Latin America plus the US and Canada, but then, wow, we have people from all over the world. This is great, but my remarks were already in Spanish. So I promise, Nadia, that I'll go slow. And then, you know, we have awesome translators for us. So here we go, just give me a second. Okay, so buenos días a todos los que hoy nos acompañan en esta última jornada de la serie de diálogos sobre pymes y la Cumbre Mundial de Naciones Unidas sobre los sistemas alimentarios, donde de manera colectiva estamos armando un plan de acción que responda a las necesidades de este sector tan estratégico para la transformación de los sistemas alimentarios. Las pymes representan el 90% del total de las empresas del sector agroalimentario y generan el 50% del valor económico, así como también el 50% de los puestos de trabajo. Es por esto que, desde la FAO, les decimos que durante estas jornadas los hemos escuchado. Sabemos de su valor en el sistema alimentario y del rol protagónico que la agenda PYME debe tener en los resultados de la Cumbre de los Sistemas Alimentarios. Durante estas jornadas se han identificado con claridad vías de acción. La creación de un ecosistema empresarial en la que las pymes alimentarias prosperen, la generación de incentivos para que las pymes ofrezcan una alimentación saludable y aumentar el poder de las pymes en la planificación sectorial. También se identificó que las pymes pueden transformar nuestros sistemas alimentarios, creando oportunidades que mejoran la igualdad, integrando los mercados para reducir la pobreza y el hambre, innovando y ampliando las soluciones para la nutrición y la sostenibilidad, incidiendo en el cambio para dar forma al futuro de la alimentación. Asimismo, claramente se identificaron el rol protagónico que deben tener las instituciones de enseñanza, los consumidores, las organizaciones de apoyo, las organizaciones financieras, las grandes empresas, los medios de comunicación y los responsables en la formulación de políticas públicas. El rol de las pymes en la transformación de los sistemas alimentarios es crucial, ya que los últimos datos del estado de la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional en el mundo no son nada alentadoras. Esta semana, la FAO, el PMA, UNICEF, el FIDA y la OMS publicaron un reporte global, donde dan los siguientes datos. En el 2020, el 10% de la población mundial se considera subalimentada, lo que representa 811 millones de personas. El 30% de la población mundial carece de alimentos adecuados, y esto representa 2.300 millones de personas. Además, aproximadamente 150 millones de menores de 5 años padecen de retraso en su crecimiento, casi 40 millones sufren de sobrepeso, y en total tenemos a 3.000 millones de adultos y niños sin acceso a dietas saludables, sobre todo por los costos excesivos. La pandemia del COVID-19 ha empeorado la situación, pero mediante la Cumbre de Sistemas Alimentarios tenemos la oportunidad de transformar los sistemas alimentarios, ya que si no hay un cambio de curso, no podremos cumplir con la Agenda 2030 ni con el objetivo del hambre cero, quedando más de 600 millones de personas padeciendo hambre. Para poder generar esta transformación, necesitamos generar acciones concretas para apoyar a las pymes agroalimentarias, que son la columna vertebral de todo el sistema. Esto se debe traducir en políticas públicas innovadoras, alianzas público-privadas, acceso a financiamiento, acceso a herramientas digitales y tecnología, acceso a nuevos mercados, integrar la cadena de suministros y fortalecer el entorno alimentario. Tenemos que trabajar juntos para una mejor producción, mejor nutrición, mejor medio ambiente y una mejor vida. Cuentan con el apoyo y el compromiso de la FAO para que juntos, gobiernos, empresas y sociedad civil, podamos transformar los sistemas alimentarios y cumplir con Agenda 2030. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Pablo. Pablo, ha sido en realidad un placer trabajar con ustedes y con la FAO. Thank you, Pablo. Can I give the last word to Robin? Please go ahead, Robin.
Thank you so much. And I don't want to think of this as the last word because this process has been so exciting. One of the true highlights and rich veins of the Food Systems Summit has been hearing from SMEs around the world. And thank you to Wasafiri for a fantastic session today. But thank you too for all of the SMEs who have come to talk about the vital role you play in the food system. And we heard that you are the front line of inclusion. It makes sense. You work in your community. You are the embodiment of inclusion. We've heard about your work on diversity of diets, so central to health. And SMEs often can tap into smaller markets inside the food system that allow them to be the effective drivers of diversity in the food we eat, and sustainability. And mostly, as we wrap up, I think we need to consider that we've heard so clearly that help is needed on marketing, on innovation, as Luciano said so well, on incubation, as Benolos represents, and the finance to get there. And there is work in the Food Systems Summit on increased access to finance for women, for SMEs, and we hope that you'll be leaning into that part of the conversation as well, including through the SME declaration that we'll be hoping all of you sign on for. There is also a business declaration. Pablo said, what is business doing as a whole? And it is a continuum of business. And so that business declaration is up on the Food Systems Summit community site. And it's an even longer list of things there. And you're welcome to sign on for that too. And beyond the Food Systems Summit, whether it's the UN Committee on Food Security, the discussions on climate change, we need this voice of SMEs that has been mobilized around this to remain an active part of our food system that is bringing a voice of really the work on the ground that is going to make the future of our food system a brighter rainbow of good food options. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you both for those wonderful words, Pablo and Robin. And thank you for all that you do for SMEs and for our food systems. It's really appreciated. We are now at the end of the session with just 1 minute to go. I hope that you will endorse the SME Pledge. And please do register for the UN Food Systems Summit pre-summit events, which will take place from the 26th to the 28th of July, just in a few days. We will send you links to both of these so that you have it handy and can go straight there. And thank you very much again to our speakers, to our conveners, to the facilitators, the rapporteurs, and the interpreters, and all of you for joining us. Until next time, stay healthy. See you soon. Keep up the fight. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Gracias.
Take care. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for a nice session.
Gracias. Excelente día para el resto del día para todos.
Thank you. Gracias.
Muchas
Chao,
gracias
gracias.
por
Hasta
toda la
luego.
información y es muy importante el trabajo que ustedes están haciendo.
Merci pour la session.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Merci beaucoup pour la session. Merci
However, you can
beaucoup.
end the meeting.
Nous avons apprécié.